Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. I'm Robbie Rhino, and in today's video I have a full review for you of the brand new Cold War premium tank. It's the Alvis Stormer 30. So this is a Western Alliance premium Era 3 light tank. In real life, the Alvis Stormer 30 was built using the Scorpion armoured vehicle as its base. In World of Tanks console, it's a very nasty damage dealing light tank as it has the multiple weapon system with a primary 30mm autocannon, as well as a dual tow launcher firing some pretty nasty ATGM. So in today's video I'm going to go over everything you need to know about this vehicle over here on Excel. Got all of the details on the Silver XP and Commander XP bonus, all of the stats. I'll talk you through my Commander and equipment setup, as well as the armour profile of the Stormer 30, and we're going to be comparing to the M3A2 Bradley, the BMP3, the Thiepval 1A1 tow and the Jaguar 1. So two light tanks and two Era 3 tank destroyers, as they all have pretty nasty ATGMs, and it's a good indication of how the Alvis Stormer 30 holds up. So it's a funky name and it's a pretty funky vehicle. Seen lots of these on the battlefield today already. This is what it looks like. That Scorpion hull, small turret with the dual tow launchers there as ears on the turret, and yeah, it's not as big as the M3A2 Bradley, not as small as something like the Thiepval 1A1 tow or the Scorpion 90 at Era 2. However, it does have some pretty nice concealment along with some great mobility. You can go forwards and backwards at the same speed, and we'll see what that is in just a little bit. But when can you pick up this vehicle? You can pick it up from the 7th of November, which is today, as this vehicle is going, this video is going out, and this vehicle, and you can pick it up until the 5th of December in 3 different bundles. You have the Ultimate Bundle, which is the equipment, premium time boosters for 16,750 gold. You have the Loaded Bundle, which is premium time boosters and the tank for 14,600 gold, and if you're like me and you're poor but you still want to pick up this vehicle, you'll have to pay 13,000 gold for the base bundle, so a pretty high price. But if you like the play style, it is a very competitive tank, not quite as OP as the Thiepval 1A1 tow, but it's very fun as well. It'll probably be worth it to you, but bear in mind there'll be lots of premium tanks coming out soon, sales or Black Friday, so yeah, think about how you want to spend your gold. But now we're going to go over to Excel, where I've got all of the stats of the Alvis Stormer 30 here on the left. In terms of my reviews, if you haven't seen them before, red is the worst stat, green is the best, and orange is somewhere in between, and the ones highlighted in yellow are the base stats with my Commander and equipment setup applied, and I'll talk you through that in just a little bit. But in this first sheet, we are going to compare to the M3A2 Bradley, so the Western Alliance Tech Tree Era 3 light tank, and also the BMP3, which is the Eastern Alliance Tech Tree Era 3 light tank. And then on the second sheet, we will be comparing to the Thiepval 1A1 tow and the Jaguar 1. Both of those are Era 3 premium tank destroyers with some nasty ATGMs, so we'll see how the ATGMs of the Alvis Stormer 30 holds up to those two vehicles first. But now we're going to start off with the silver bonus, the XP and Commander bonus, as this is a premium vehicle, so this is going to have the advantage over the M3A2 Bradley and the BMP3. You have a 55% silver bonus on the Stormer 30, and it's 15% XP and a 15% Commander XP bonus, so pretty good for training crews compared to some other Era 3 premium tanks, and a 55% silver bonus. Not quite as good as some other Era 3 premiums, but enough to make some pretty nice silver, and of course you get that extra XP with that 15% as well. So now we're going to head on into the sort of raw stats of the Stormer 30, if you like, starting with the hit points. 3,000 hit points, the same as the BMP3, 200 less than the Bradley. The Bradley's a lot bigger in terms of its size, so more easier to spot with true vision in Cold War, and it doesn't have as good concealment as the Stormer 30, and it's miles off what the concealment is on the BMP3, so that makes sense to have 200 more hit points. But be warned, in the Stormer 30 you have hardly any armour at all. You'll be penned by HE, ATGMs, all manner of ammunition, and those 3,000 hit points won't last too long, so make good use of your mobility and your concealment to try and stay hidden try and avoid getting hit by anything, because more often than not it will penetrate your vehicle. In terms of view range, 550 meters, which is the worst in this comparison, joint with the BMP3. It's only 15 less than on the M3A2 Bradley, and you can boost that up. I've chosen to run situational awareness on my commander. I've now got it to 611 meters, allowing me to outspot most medium and heavy tanks, and even some other light tanks, tank destroyers, that haven't set their vehicle up correctly or for a sort of view range or concealment based focus. In terms of the still concealment on the Alvis Stormer 30, I was wondering what it would be when they put out the stats, because they don't include that until update day. 312.61 meters. It's better concealed than the M3A2 Bradley. However, it's miles off something like the BMP3, and also, as you're going to see later, the Jaguar 1 and the Thiepval 1A1 tow. You have the same moving concealment as still concealment as you are a light tank. However, you can't get it down to a dramatically low level, but low enough to be sneakier, and you're a smaller profile than the Bradley, so that can keep you out of harm's way in certain scenarios. Next, we're going to go on to the mobility of the Alvis Stormer 30. You have a very low engine power, 250, which translates to a power to weight ratio of 19. So both of those are the worst in this comparison, and the power to weight ratio is miles off something like the BMP3. As you can see, that has 35.21, slightly off the M3A2 Bradley, which is a little bit disappointing for the Alvis Stormer 30. You are a very light vehicle in terms of your weight. Trees, rocks, anything like that, ridgelines will slow you down, and it can feel it takes a long time to get up to your top forward or reverse speed of 80 kilometers an hour with that poor power to weight. So you want to try and improve that if you can by using the advanced powertrain on your equipment. The traction system will improve your top forward speed and your whole traverse, so definitely think about a mobility focused commander and equipment build with the concealment build added in as well, and I'll show you what I did in just a little bit. But in terms of your top forward and reverse speed, once you do get up to your top forward and reverse, 80 kilometers an hour, same for forward and reverse, which is absolutely fantastic news for getting down off of those ridge lines. Top forward speed, it can struggle to achieve it, however, over sort of hard terrain, and when you've been driving for a while, it can reach that quite easily. Much quicker than the Bradley going forwards, and it's only slightly less than the BMP3, and it is miles quicker than the other two vehicles in reverse, thanks to that 80 kilometers an hour in reverse. And if you use the traction system, as you can see, I now go 92.4 kilometers an hour forwards and backwards, which is great news. And once you do get up to your top forward and reverse speeds, your whole traverse is very nice, best in this comparison at 50 degrees a second, slightly better than the BMP3, much better than the Bradley, which allows you to sort of weave in and out, dodge shells, and yeah, get to where you need to be on the battlefield. Turret traverse at 50 degrees a second, not as good as the Bradley's 60 degrees a second, but with a couple of gun handling skills, I've boosted mine to 52 degrees a second, and it is better than the BMP3's turret traverse. And yeah, I wouldn't really focus too much on the gun handling skills, but a couple will improve that just by a little bit. And now we're going to get on to the fun part of the Alvis Stormer 30, and that is the firepower. So like I mentioned at the start of this video, you have two different firepower options. You have a primary 30mm autocannon. It has 150 shots per clip, and it can deal, if you penetrate every single round, 6,000 damage in an unload speed of 44.7 seconds from the first shell. Let's compare that to the primary guns of the other two light tanks. So the Bradley has a 25mm autocannon with double the amount of shots per clip, 300 and 9,000 damage, taking you 89.7 seconds to unload all of that damage, and of course you have to penetrate every single round. And the BMP3, probably the best primary gun to use in my opinion, because it gets the damage out so much quicker. 3,000 damage in 29.85 seconds. However, there are some massive penetration differences and alpha damage differences, as well as shell velocity, and we're going to get into that now. So Alvis Stormer 30, you have two different ammunition options. You fire standard APF SDS and an HE option. You don't have a premium option like you do on the BMP3, which has premium APF SDS. On the standard APF SDS rounds on this 30mm autocannon, 1385 meters a second shell velocity, so not too bad at firing if you wanted to try and snipe. Highly recommend don't doing it, because you give your position away thanks to the incredible rate of fire that this autocannon and every autocannon has pretty much in Era 3. However, sort of medium and close up, it can allow you to hit shots with auto lock and not have to give too much lead if you're trying to shoot at tanks that are trying to circle you, faster tanks like the Thiepval 1A1 or like the BMP3, so that can come in handy. You have 223mm of penetration on the standard rounds, which as you can see is the best in this comparison, so more likely to pen more of your rounds, and you have the highest alpha damage, 10 more than the Bradley at 40, and you have much more than you do on the BMP3, which has a lowly 15 alpha damage on its standard and premium. In terms of the HE rounds on the Stormer 30, 1050 meters a second, so that's to be expected, 60mm of penetration, and it only jumps up by 10 damage to 50. Same as on the Bradley, which has slightly better shell velocity, 5 more millimeters a pen, but the same alpha damage. And yeah, HE largely irrelevant on autocannons. I wouldn't recommend carrying any at all. The only kind of tanks you would penetrate are things like a BMP3, maybe a Bradley, the Thiepval 1A1 Jaguar 1, or some tanks from the rear. However, thanks to all the spaced and composite explosive reactive armour protecting against HE, heat and ATGMs in Era 3, just don't recommend carrying any at all. So in terms of your tow launcher then, it's a 2-shot ATGM autoloader capable of dealing 2600 damage in 12 seconds from the first shell, thanks to that 12-second interclip reload. Compare that to the Bradley, which is also a 2-shot ATGM autoloader, 2600 damage in 10 seconds. It has a 2-second faster interclip than the Stormer 30, and the BMP3's ATGM launcher has a 100mm HE option, and it's a single fire ATGM launcher, so bear that in mind when we compare these ATGMs. So on the Stormer 30 you can carry 2 different flavours of ATGM. You have your standard and your premium, and of course the premium is going to be better. So both the ATGM options, the same shell velocity, 329 meters a second. On the standard ATGMs, 800mm of pen, the same as the Bradley. And if you want to use your premium, it just jumps up by 200 to 1000mm of penetration, so astonishing penetration there. Alpha damage 1300 on both of those ATGMs, the same as the Bradley, and module damage, so the higher the number, more likely you are to deal ammo rack, set people on fire, do critical hits, is 650, so pretty high there. In terms of comparing the ATGMs to the Bradley, it is absolutely identical. Compared to the standard ATGMs of the BMP3, as you can see, that has a faster shell velocity and it has 50 more millimeters of penetration on your standard ATGMs, but it doesn't have a premium ATGM option on that vehicle, whereas the Bradley and the Stormer 30 do, so they come out tops in that regard. In terms of the alpha damage on the BMP3, 980 with 490 module damage, so a smaller module damage there as well. And here is the HE options for the 100mm on the BMP3. Yeah, 355 meters a second, 120 pen, so 470 damage and 150 module damage. Next, we're going to have a look at the gun handling, the DPM of the autocannon and the ATGM. Then we're going to have a look at what the combined DPM could be if you penetrated every single round from your autocannon and your 2-shot ATGM autoloader, and it is staggering. So, as we've already mentioned, the Alvis Stormer 30 has 150 shots per clip, 6000 damage in 44.7 seconds. That is thanks to a 0.3 second interclip reload. In terms of your aim time on this 30mm autocannon, 1.8 seconds, better than the Bradley, worse than the BMP3. In terms of your accuracy, it's worse than both of the other light tanks. However, you can get that down to a respectable level, and you're only really going to be using it up close and personal. And it's still a little bit derpy, but I highly recommend you invest in mobility and concealment in your equipment and commander setup, and not too many gun handling skills. But of course, you can tweak it to your liking. In terms of your rate of fire, it's the lowest in this comparison, 112.64, which means you have the highest reload, or longest reload I should say, 35.2 seconds, so 5.2 seconds more than the Bradley. And as you can see, the BMP3 single fire 30mm autocannon 9 seconds. Interclip reload, like we just discussed, 0.3 seconds, the same as the M3A2 Bradley. And of course you will have a slightly worse DPM than the Bradley thanks to those above stats, so a 4,506 DPM if you pen every single round, and realistically you just won't be doing that in Era 3 from any of these vehicles, any of these autocannons. However, the BMP3 comes miles on top there in terms of the DPM, 4,633, and the Bradley only beats you by 5 damage per minute, so I wouldn't worry too much there. You carry 800 rounds of this 30mm auto cannon, which allows you to have pretty multiple magazines in every single battle. It doesn't matter too much. You're not really going to be running out, in my opinion, unless you're just constantly firing. The Bradley has 1,500 rounds, but it does have double the amount of shots per clip at 300. And in terms of the BMP3's autocannon, which is a 30mm like the Alvis Stormer, whereas the Bradley's a 25mm. So on the BMP3, 200 shots per clip, and it carries 600, which is the lowest in this comparison. You definitely can run out with that, and it's only 3 full magazines worth with that auto cannon, so definitely bear in mind about that when you're playing that vehicle as well. In terms of the gun depression, it's different with the 30mm and the ATGM launcher. So in terms of your 30mm autocannon on the Stormer 30, you have 10 degrees of gun depression, which is the best in this comparison, 1 more than the Bradley and 4 more than the BMP3. Gun elevation is the worst in the comparison, which can catch you out if you're trying to shoot at someone way above you, but in most scenarios that won't matter too much. But the Bradley's the best at 59, BMP3 just behind that at 57. Now we're going to go on to the ATGM 2-shot autoloader of the Stormer 30, so it's the same dual tow launcher that's on the Bradley, so 2 shots per every reload. You have a rate of fire on this 2-shot ATGM autoloader of 3.29, which means you reload 2 of your ATGMs in 24.5 seconds. As you can see, this is 0.5 seconds better than the Bradley and the ATGMs on the BMP3. As you can see there, rate of fire 5, and it's a single fire launcher, so it is going to reload much quicker at 12 seconds, but pretty much comparable in terms of loading 1 shell. In terms of the DPM on the Stormer 30, 4,277, so that's worse than the M3A2 Bradley. That has a far superior interclip of 10 seconds, 2 seconds quicker than the Alvis Stormer, and the BMP3 miles out on top at 4,900 damage per minute. Of course, a lot of times you will do splash damage, sometimes they'll get absorbed, so don't expect to be doing that every single minute. If you're constantly firing on reload, it's just a good indication of some pretty nasty damage dealing that this vehicle can do. In terms of ammo capacity, the Stormer 30, you can carry 14 ATGMs into battle, so 7 whole magazines. You can carry 24 with the M3A2 Bradley, which is 12 magazines into battle. And in terms of the BMP3, you can carry 14 ATGMs and 48 100mm HE rounds. In terms of gun depression, it's really nice on the Stormer 30 with the dual tow launcher, 19 degrees, same as the Bradley, allowing you to use quite steep ridge lines, poke up and then fall back with your great reverse speed of 80 kilometers an hour, or even higher if you choose to improve it. Much better than the 6 degrees on the BMP3. And in terms of gun elevation, you lose a degree over your 30mm, but it doesn't matter too much. It's the same as the Bradley. It's just beaten by the BMP3, which has 57 degrees of gun elevation. And this figure here, combined DPM, I've added up the top possible DPM with the base stats of the Stormer 30 in terms of the 30mm and the 2-shot ATGM autoloader. And if you penned every single round and every single ATGM every minute, you're looking at 8,783 damage per minute. Of course, this is the lowest in this comparison. The BMP3 gets just shy of 10k at 9,533, and the M3A2 Bradley 8,970. So again, slightly better than the Alvis Stormer 30. It's just a technical DPM, of course. You're not going to be penning every ATGM, every autocannon shell, but it's a good indication that you can deal some very nasty damage, and you can take out things like medium and heavy tanks. If they're alone, you can absolutely obliterate them if you're just careful where you shoot, when you shoot, and make sure first and foremost you pen your ATGMs, as that's the most dangerous thing that you have at your disposal. So in terms of the stats there, that is what the stats are of the Alvis Stormer 30. We've compared to the two Era 3 light tanks in the form of the M3A2 Bradley and the BMP3. Now I'm going to quickly take you over to the next sheet, and we're going to be comparing to the Thiepval 1A1 TOW and the Jaguar 1, two premium Era 3 Western Alliance tank destroyers. We're only going to be comparing some of the stats, as those vehicles are ATGM only vehicles, whereas the Stormer 30, as we've seen, has a 30mm autocannon, but it gives you an impression of how the mobility and the ATGMs hold up of all of these vehicles. Then I'll take you back, show you my commander and equipment setup, talk to you a little bit about the armour or lack of with the Stormer 30, then we'll get stuck into full gameplays at the end of today's video. So Thiepval 1A1 TOW and Jaguar 1, bear in mind, are tank destroyers. They're not going to have the same concealment on the move like the Stormer 30 has. However, it can use silent driving on the Thiepval and Jaguar 1, which brings the concealment down to a much better level than the Stormer 30. And the Thiepval 1A1 TOW is that just absolute best pest in Era 3. It's still absolutely insane. Jaguar 1 was a little bit of a letdown for some people, however it was dramatically buffed. But in terms of the stats comparison out of these tanks here, silver bonus on the Stormer 30, as you can see, 10% less than on the Thiepval and Jaguar. In terms of XP bonus, you have 5% more at 15, and you have 5% more on your commander. In terms of your HP, you have 300 more than on the Thiepval and 100 more than on the Jaguar 1, so a plus point there for the Stormer 30. You have less view range by 40 meters compared to the Thiepval and by 60 meters compared to the Jaguar 1. However, you can get a nice level above 600 and the ability to spot is very good. Still concealment, better than the Bradley, however it's worse than these two vehicles, miles worse than the Thiepval, which has insane concealment. However, it's such a tiny tank as well. Combine that with the actual size profile, it makes it absolutely crazy, which is why it's sort of the bane of everyone's life in Era 3. And you are even worse than the Jaguar 1 in terms of your still concealment. In terms of mobility then, you can see the Thiepval has an 86 engine power, but yeah, it blows the Stormer 30 out of the water in terms of the power to weight. You have a similar power to weight on the Stormer 30 as on the Jaguar 1, slightly worse than the Jaguar 1's 19.61, but the Thiepval comes out king. Top forward speed, you can see that you're joint with the Thiepval, however the Thiepval gets to it much quicker thanks to the better power to weight. Reverse speed, however, you do come out on top, 10 more than the Jaguar 1, which is 70 forwards and backwards, and the Thiepval can only go 32 backwards. And also bear in mind the Thiepval 1A1 TOW can only move its gun 45 degrees, or its launcher 45 degrees to the left and right, whereas on the Stormer 30 and Jaguar 1 you have a fully rotational ATGM launcher. In terms of whole traverse, Thiepval comes out on top, but the Stormer 30 not far behind, and it is better than the Jaguar 1. And in terms of the turret traverse, you can see here the Stormer 30, same as the Thiepval, and it has a benefit there that you actually have a fully rotational turret over the Thiepval, and it is better than the Jaguar 1's 40 degrees a second. So now we're going to have a look at the ATGMs of this light tank and the 2 tank destroyers and see what comes out on top. So bear in mind again, the Alvis Stormer 30 has a 2-shot tow launcher or dual launcher, 2 shots capable of dealing 2,600 damage in 12 seconds, whereas the Thiepval and the Jaguar one are ATGM only vehicles. So in terms of the standard ATGMs on all of these vehicles, the 329 meters a second on the Alvis Stormer 30 is the same as on the Thiepval. However, on the Jaguar 1, you have a much lower shell velocity at 240 meters a second, meaning it's much easier to lead with the Stormer 30 and the Thiepval. In terms of penetration, you have 800 on the Stormer 30, same as the Thiepval standard ATGMs, 100 less than the Jaguar ones. In terms of your alpha damage, 1300, the same as the standard on the Thiepval, but it is 170 less than on the Jaguar one, which is 1470, and that comes out on top. And module damage, 650, same as the Thiepval on the standard, however falling behind the 730 on the standard Jaguar 1 ATGMs. And then the premium ATGM option for all of these vehicles, 329 meters a second on the Stormer 30, same as the Thiepval, and much better than the 250 meters a second on the Jaguar 1. 1000 millimeters of penetration, same as the Thiepval, and worse than the 1250 on the Jaguar 1, which, yeah, incredible levels there. And in terms of the alpha damage, this is where the Stormer 30 will fall behind the tank destroyers. You have 1300 on your premium ATGM, same as your standard. However, on the Thiepval it jumps up to 1430, and then on the Jaguar 1, 1470, still coming out on top. And of course, with the module damage, the Thiepval is going to be slightly higher, and 730 with the Jaguar 1 coming out on top there. So more ammo racks and things like that with the premium ATGMs of the Thiepval, but especially the Jaguar 1. However, a still good 650 module damage will allow you to deal some pretty nasty critical damage. And now we're going to get on to the sort of rate of fire, DPM, gun depression and elevation here of these ATGMs and these vehicles. So on the Alvis Stormer 30, you do have the best rate of fire out of all of these vehicles at 3.29. However, you don't have the best reload, and of course that is because you have a 2-shot auto loader. However, for your 2 shots, you still load quicker than 1 shot on the Thiepval, which is 25 seconds, and 1 shot on the Jaguar 1 loads quicker than the Stormer 30 at 19.5 seconds. However, again, that's only for that 1 ATGM. In terms of your DPM, with the standard rounds or the standard ATGMs, 4277 on the Stormer 30. On the Thiepval, much worse at 3120, but you don't have the same DPM that the Jaguar one has at 4528. In terms of premium ATGM DPM, it's going to be the same as the standard for the Stormer 30. On the Thiepval, 3432, and it's going to be the same 4528 on the Jaguar 1, as it's the same alpha damage. And we're nearly there. 12-second intraclip reload for the Stormer 30, as we've already discussed. Ammo capacity, you can carry 2 full magazines, 7 magazines I should say, with the Stormer 30, 14 ATGMs into every battle, 24 with the Thiepval, and 30 with the Jaguar 1, but they're ATGM only vehicles, which, it goes to figure that they're going to have more ATGMs. Gun depression, with the ATGMs on the Alvis Stormer 30, I didn't upload it because I didn't know the stats, but it's 19 and 29, so I can change that now, and then we can see where it holds up. So 10 degrees on the Thiepval, which is the worst in this comparison. Then the Alvis Stormer 30 is going to be there just behind the Jaguar 1 with 20 degrees of gun depression, which is absolutely insane. 29 degrees of gun elevation on the Stormer 30 is the best in this comparison. 19 better than on the Thiepval's 10 degrees of elevation, and 18.5 on the Jaguar 1. And again, bear in mind, Stormer 30 can have that combined DPM of 8,783 technical DPM if you penetrate with your main cannon and your ATGMs as well. But a good sort of indication there of how the ATGMs hold up, pretty similar to the Thiepval's ATGMs. You do have a much better DPM with the ATGMs than on the Thiepval, worse than the Jaguar 1. However, having that 2 sort of clip with your ATGMs can be absolutely deadly. And then again, compared to the light tanks, great top forward and reverse speed. Power to weight is lacking, so try and improve that. Decent hit points, view range you can get up. concealment better than the Bradley, and you do have the multiple weapon system, which can be absolutely deadly. With this 30mm coming in clutch sometimes to finish vehicles off, as you have put 1 or 2 ATGMs into the enemy tanks and hopefully weaken them to a point where they are no longer a threat. So that's it for the stats review of the Alvis Stormer 30. Now I'm going to get stuck into my commander and equipment setup. So in terms of my equipment, what I've chosen to run in the gameplay you'll see at the end is the advanced concealment, the advanced powertrain, and the traction system. And in terms of my commander skills, Sixth Sense, Born Leader, Rapid Loading, Camouflage Expertise, Muffled Shot, Green Thumb, Steady Aim, Run and Gun, and Situational Awareness. So in terms of my commander, Sixth Sense and Born Leader are standard, as well as Rapid Loading to help the DPM out. And then I run Camouflage Expertise, Muffled Shot and Green Thumb, 3 concealment perks. Can't run Silent Driving, as it's a light tank, it has the same still and moving concealment. So I've run Steady Aim and Run and Gun to help the autocannon out, and Situational Awareness to boost my max view range by 6%. And in terms of my equipment, no gun handling skills, gone for advanced concealment for the concealment and powertrain and traction system to get as much out of the poor engine as you can on this vehicle, which will allow me to hopefully stay out of the way of faster vehicles like the Thiepval 101 tow, and hopefully don't get caught out too often. So if you run the same setup as me, you'll be looking at a view range of 611 meters and a still concealment rating of 176 meters. So you get it down to a reasonable level, nothing like the concealment on the Thiepval or the Jaguar 1 or on the BMP3, however much better than the M3A2 Bradley. In terms of the power to weight, gone up to 19.95 and my top forward and reverse to 92.4 kilometers an hour. Hull traverse has gone up by 5 degrees a second to 55 degrees a second, and turret traverse, thanks to those 2 gun handling skills, 52 degrees a second from 50 degrees a second. In terms of the 30mm autocannon, my aim time's dropped to 1.73 seconds, and my accuracy down to 0.29, which is still a little bit derpy, but good for up close and personal. Rate of fire's gone from 112 to 120.42, meaning my reload has dropped by 5.2 seconds to 30 seconds for those 150 shots, which means my DPM is now 4,817 with the autocannon. And in terms of the 2-shot ATGM autoloader, rate of fire has gone up to 3.65, reloads dropped from 24.5 to 20.91 seconds, and my DPMs jumped up from 4277 to 4745. And if we combine the DPM of the 30mm autocannon and the 2-shot ATGM autoloader, I have a technical DPM on the Stormer 30 of 9,562. So yeah, pretty deadly. Still not quite as good as something like the BMP3. However, you do have that better penetration than the BMP3 does in terms of your standard rounds, your APF SDS rounds on your 30mm autocannon, and you also have very, very nasty premium ATGMs, which have 150 more pen than the ATGMs on the BMP3. So yeah, make of that what you will, but it's all very good in theory. We're going to have to see how it performs on the battlefield. Very, very quickly, I'll talk you through the armor profile, and I'll just put up some screenshots of the armor or lack of on this vehicle. So turret armor 40mm, lower plate armor 30mm, then you have 25.4mm sections of spaced armor on the sort of lower plate, upper plate and the rear of this vehicle. Over the mantlet, 25mm, tracks count is 20mm of spaced armor. The sides of the vehicle are 12.7mm, so definitely no side scraping in the Stormer 30. Yeah, that's to be expected. And there's a little bit of spaced armor on the sides there at 6mm, but nothing to write home about. You'll be penned from every angle. The only chance you have is someone grazing your tracks with heat or ATGMs and doing no damage, or sometimes tracks just absorbing. And from the front, if you're just shooting the tracks, you won't be hitting the hole at the same time, so you just want to shoot it at a slightly of an angle and you're going to easily go through. But that's it for the armor and the stats review of the Stormer 30. We're now going to head on into the first of 4 gameplays. So here we are on Westfield in the Stormer 30. This is my last game that I had in my session earlier, and unfortunately when I looked at the team list it appears that it was the World of Tanks console stream, their Tuesday stream, and Petty, Dave GM and T-Can were on the enemy team, all in Stormer 30, so I expected them to contest this sort of south or the central part of this map, go down towards that bridge area, down the 0 line, so I'm going to try and do something a little bit different. I'm going to try and push the north, trying to get my teammates to sort of move up with me, and I'm going to use the great gun depression with the dual tow launcher here to poke this ridgeline, try and get some nasty ATGMs and win the north, and hopefully we can then defend, because I'm expecting them to win the centre and the south, and I just don't have enough firepower, even though it's very nasty to contest against 3 enemy Stormer 30s, and this vehicle in a platoon, very deadly, just like the Jaguar 1 or especially the Thiepval 1A1 tow, but they're spotted over there on the 0 line, and you can get a nice indication of the mobility here with the Stormer 30. You can race into position even though the engine power isn't fantastic. It doesn't take an awful long time to get up to your top forward speed, however, it's just slower than the Thiepval. And that's basically the major downside, but we're going to fire here and we get an ATGM at distance on, I believe that was T-Can, showing you that better shell velocity than on the Jaguar 1, same as on the Thiepval, comes in clutch. Unfortunately there we just lead it behind, I believe that's Dave GM, and now we're just going to try and put some random 30mm fire. You can see that it does fire very quickly with that 0.3 second interclip reload. Pop the smoke screen that I run on this vehicle to improve the concealment, and yeah, get out of dodge, and then I'm just going to try and push the north and see if we can win this before we get completely surrounded, as we're already losing a lot of tanks. So we're going to poke up here, got to be a little bit careful because as soon as we get spotted we are going to be taking damage in this vehicle in this position. Not that many places to hide and we're losing tanks left, right and centre, so a little bit of an awkward 12-second interclip reload in certain scenarios. It can catch you out. It's not like a 2-tap tank that you can go in quickly and dump both ATGMs in, but it's sort of short enough for it to feel quite nice. Going to free aim that one into the rear of that Challenger 2. And we fired sort of 3 ATGMs that have hit in this game and are already up to 4,088 damage. Now we're on a reload. And yeah, I've got my reload down for the 2 ATGMs to 20.91 seconds, so it feels pretty quick. And whilst we're reloading, we might as well make ourselves useful, come in behind these main battle tanks, put some shots into the side and rear, and that is what this is good for. The autocannon finishing tanks off that are on low health. And we kind of dragged the scores slightly back there with the assistance of our team. Now we're going to go all in on this AMX-40. Got 1 ATGM left, firing on the move, free aiming, making sure keeping my left hand is steady and just aiming with my sort of right thumbstick. And yeah, we managed to get one into that AMX-30 who gets taken out. Now we're on a reload, doesn't feel too long at all, and yeah, you reload 2 ATGMs quicker than the Thiepval 1A1 loads 1, so that can be a benefit if you're fighting one of them. However, it does have the benefit that it can just outspot you completely in every scenario. This is pretty much as good as I can get the concealment on the Stormer 30. T-Can misses, I miss, so we're going to go for a round to take him out of the game. Still got half a magazine, so we're going to go for a full reload there. Got 1 ATGM left. Thinking about whether I want to reload now, and I do. I go for the full reload so that my last stand I can hopefully get 2 ATGMs off. Unfortunately for the medium tank over there in the northwest, I just can't help out in this game. And yeah, it's now 1 versus 7. Pretty much no chance that I'm going to be able to take this one down. If I was in a Thiepval, there'd be a very slight chance I might be able to outspot and ambush tanks, but there's too many of them and it's all about making a last stand in this game. So we're going to come up here and see if we can ambush any tank. You can definitely ambush vehicles with the Stormer 30, even though the concealment isn't as good as something like the BMP3 or the Thiepval 1A1 tow. You can catch some other tanks out, and we managed to fortunately catch a tank there with the True Vision system going into the capture circle. Quickly just load the ATGM. It was already loaded, I believe, but quickly just snapped there on Petty. We managed to get 1 ATGM into him, Can't take him out there with the 30mm, as I know there's going to be a swarm of tanks after me. And now it's about trying to get one last ATGM. We've unfortunately just put it into the composite armour on the front of that medium tank, and now it's all about trying to get as many of these 30mm rounds into the opponents. You can see it's very, very derpy, especially if you don't improve the gun handling, but occasionally it pens with decent enough standard pen for an autocannon, and for a 5-minute 26-second battle there, with a very, very talented platoon on the enemy team, we still managed to pick up top on our team with 1 kill and 9.1k direct damage and 121 assistance. Make a nice profit with or without a premium account. Somehow blocked 530 damage with absolutely no armour. That's probably thanks to the autocannons on the enemy team, and that's a good indication of the damage dealing you can do with the Stormer 30 even in a defeat. So that's our first game there on Westfield, arguably one of the best light tank maps in the game. However, we were up against some very good players. Now we're going to head on into the second gameplay, so I'll see you over there. So now we're on Pearl River in the Stormer 30, and I'm going to try and make my way down the 1-2 line, down the western side of the map, try and spot out towards the south. However, by the time we get into position, all of our team are going to be going either to the north or to the centre, so we are going to have to turn around in a minute. But just going to poke up here, see if we can get any kind of indication of whether there are enemy tanks coming this way. And you can see once you do get up to your top speed or near your top speed, you are very nimble with that good hull traverse, pretty decent turret traverse. And I feel very confident here going up, sort of facing forwards. Usually I'd want to swivel around, pull the handbrake and reverse into that position, but because you have such a good top forward and reverse speed, it doesn't really matter. The only reason you'd reverse into a position is probably to give less of your front hull to the enemy to shoot. But I just wanted to quickly sort of dip my feet into the water, see the temperature, and there are some enemies coming that way, so I'm just going to try and go into the centre, try and progress this battle, try and win the north and the centre, and then we can defend our base from the middle. No point in me sticking there because I'll get outnumbered and probably taken out of the game. So you have enough mobility, as you do in most light tanks, to get around the battlefield, get to where you need to be. Everything's so blooming quick in Era 3. They're going to be main battle tanks that are going to be just as quick. However, we do have sort of that ability to maneuver with that hull traverse of above 50 degrees a second with our commander and equipment setup, and that should allow us to evade getting rammed by enemy main battle tanks. And if you do get rammed, yeah, you lose a lot of hit points, and I'm pretty sure you'll see an example of that in today's gameplay. But now I'm just trying to spot out towards the south at enemies going towards our base. The Makarov Mark 1 parked sort of side on there. We can go through his drive wheel, through his side for 1,264, and then within 12 seconds we are loaded again. Gonna go for an ATGM there on that Stormer 30. I probably should have, because I would have taken him out, but I didn't want to waste the ATGM. I thought that I might have been able to take him out with the autocannon. However, we couldn't there, so now we're going to just reverse up because I want to get there as quickly as possible. Don't have to turn around, same top forward and reverse speed, come and help this heavy tank. Unfortunately for us, what's going to happen is now this Stormer 30 is going to come after us, but we put an ATGM into him for a lovely roll there above 1300. We dodge his round, and now we're going to have to pop our smoke and try and get a few quick 30mm rounds as a warning, few shots to stop that light tank coming after us. And Matchmaker is going to be like that for a while. Going to be a very popular tank like the Thiepval because it's very fun to play, annoying to play against, and it's very, very dangerous. Driving like an absolute pillock there into the building, but we're safe for now, and then we can go back to spotting out along the sort of western side of the map at tanks that are going towards our base. Makarov Mark 1 is set on fire, and then we put one right through him. Fortunately for us, the enemy Stormer 30 somehow doesn't pen us with his ATGM. He sets us on fire, but we quickly switch with the multiple weapon system, and that's just with practice. He wasn't quick enough to switch, or either he wasn't loaded with his ATGMs. We put one into him, and we managed to get out of a very dangerous situation there with a clutch play. again, multiple weapon system, hold down your ammo select button and you can switch without time penalty between your firepower options, and it's a massive game changer. It was a game changer when it was introduced with things like the BMP3, and it just meant it was so powerful at taking out enemy tanks. So from a pretty slow start there, we had to relocate with the mobility. We've managed to pick up 5.5k direct damage, 2.2 assistance. There are 2 tanks left on the enemy team. There is a Thiepval 1A1 tow here, and he's going to outspot me before I can even see him. And unfortunately for us, we drove into a rock. I thought that was my downfall. However, I think the Thiepval missed us, which allow us now to go after him. We try and lead, as I don't know what happened then, nearly coughed or burped, one of them. We try and lead our ATGM on that Thiepval. However, he was going around a corner. There was no chance. And now we're just going to sit on this hill, see if we can whittle him down, and then wait for an ambush shot here with an ATGM. Going to stop, wait, and then we're gonna, there we go, sort of aim that corner, fire it, decent enough shell velocity on 4 ATGMs, and we put a nasty ATGM into that Thiepval. Lose some hit points because we hit a tree because we're so light, and we're going to ram the Thiepval, which is very satisfying. We don't weigh much, but we weigh more than a Thiepval, taking him out of the game, and we finish in second place there with a profit with or without a premium account. Only a second class mastery because this tank is crazy. 1260 base XP with 2 kills, 7.3k direct damage, 2251 assistance, and again blocked 1430 thanks to autocannons. We managed to block some rounds there, so enough armor to block autocannons, pretty much nothing else. 4 minutes and 57 second battle duration and a 9.5k combined damage game there on Pearl River. So that's it for the second gameplay. We're now going to head on into the third one. So now we are on Redshire in the Stormer 30, and I'm going to make my way to the central ridgelines, try and get some vision for our team, and then hopefully get an ATGM combo off on some unsuspecting main battle tanks that are probably going to be making their way from the north over to the eastern side and then going on to try and contest our base. So it's all about knowing your map positions in this tank. You can't be as aggressive as you could be in something like the Thiepval because of the concealment that tank has, and also in the BMP3. With that better concealment, you can go a little bit closer to the flame, so to speak, but in the Stormer 30 you have to sit slightly further back than you would in those tanks, but you can be slightly more aggressive than if you were in the M3A2 Bradley, because that has horrific concealment. You're much bigger, and we are able to sit on this ridgeline, and I feel pretty confident nothing is really going to spot me here. I'm just trying to get some vision on these central ridges and hopefully get some nice assistance for the team. Challenger 2 there pokes up. I was going to fire directly at him, but when he again pokes up, what I'm going to do is fire before he crests the ridgeline so that we don't get spotted as we fire, and that allows us to retain our kind of immunity for the moment in this position, and then we can try and get some ATGMs off towards the north of the map. I'm going to redirect in midair for that Stormer 30 and get as many of the pesky light tanks and tank destroyers out of this game as possible, and then we can have free reign with our mobility. And the more light tanks, the more Thiepvals and Jaguar ones you take out of the game early on, the more your concealment will come into play in the latter stages of the battle, where you'll be able to do what I'm doing now, sit behind foliage and get ATGMs off on main battle tanks that won't be able to spot you. Unfortunately, we don't pen that M1A2 Abrams there. However, we don't get spotted. We do get spotted now. I'm trying to sort of go down on this ridgeline as far as possible. I managed to quickly guide it into that MX at 32. I believe he gets taken out there by the Challenger 2, and now we can go for a reload. And we are on our own on this central sort of ridgeline, taking some fire, so I'm going to make my way as quickly as possible, ask this Leopard 2, who is kind of camping the base a bit, for some support, and I can double back on myself, go down the sort of K line and spot these ridge lines using this hard cover. We get some nice assistance there, and now it's all about trying to find the right opportunity. More often than not, you'll feel like you won't get spotted sometimes in this tank. You'll fire what will happen? You'll get spotted, you'll be unprepared, and you'll get taken out very quickly indeed. And when you're getting chased down by something like Jaguar 1, or more importantly a Weasel 1A1 tow, you have to be extremely careful. They're quicker than you, and even with the limited sort of gun traverse that tank has, it doesn't have a fully traversable turret. It can still completely take you off guard with the concealment and mobility that incredibly OP tank destroyer has. So we get an ATGM in there, pop the smoke screen, which is a lifesaver in the Stormer 30, and then again we're going to double back on ourselves, trying to make it not as obvious where we're going. However, I believe we do get spotted there as a shot flies behind us, and now I'm just trying to make it as quickly as possible towards my teammates. We're one tank behind, but if I can make it up to them, hopefully I'll be able to be of more use. We're getting some assistance at tanks that are chasing me. Fortunately, our team are shooting what we are spotting, and we've made it almost into safety here. And now it's trying to get as many of our damaging ATGMs in as possible. You're not going to win games with the autocannon. However, it can come in handy for finishing tanks off, especially lightly armoured tanks. So we're down by 2 tanks in this game. We're up to 4.7k direct damage, 2.1k assistance, and I'm trying to pick my next target. Thinking about going for this Challenger 2 there on the ridge, but I expect he'll be taken out as he was just sat there, nearly sort of tipped our tank, or maybe even taken our tank or written our tank off there. Fortunately, we don't. This thumper spots us as we get too close to him. We're going to go for the driver over there, keep him in place. He fortunately misses us, and then we can use our autocannon to get a few rounds into him. Getting some assistance, and now going to try and to fire ATGM, but I'm going to have to fire it on the move as we are lit up and we are detected by the enemy team. Dodge the enemy Stormer 30 there, and now we're going to have to free aim. If I auto-aimed at this position, no matter the shell velocity, I would be missing because it's the same speed going around in a circle. So we had to go out there and free aim just in front, and with the shell velocity above 1300, more than enough to get some rounds into him and take him out for our second kill in this game. And now we're going to try and get an ATGM here on this MX-32. I was hoping he'd go backwards or forwards into his previous position there, so we kept the ATGM going. But no dice there, and unfortunately we don't do a damaging shell with our ATGM. In terms of my loadout, as you can see at the bottom, I carry full standard with the 30mm autocannon, and in terms of the ATGMs, I carry 4 of the standard purely for the purposes showing you that they're pretty decent in this review. However, I'll probably be just carrying premium ATGMs, because why wouldn't you want the extra 200 millimeters of penetration? As long as you penetrate them, you'll still be making silver, and you're more likely to make your ATGMs work. But even with 800, the standard is pretty decent. So now we are actually up by 4 tanks, so apart from nearly going off the bridge there and rolling ourselves and getting ourselves out of the game, we're going to go full pelt towards this Challenger 2, and hopefully we can be the ones to pick up this final kill. I got enough hit points to play with here, as long as I don't ram him. So they're going to go over, fire the ATGM into the side. Unfortunately, we don't do enough even splash damage to take him out. But we're going to fire the autocannon there, have to free aim the last few shells as he went into the smoke, and we get the last kill there on the Challenger 2. So second place again in this vehicle. Nice profit with or without a premium account. That's only a second class again. 1324 base experience, 3 kills, 7.2k direct damage, 3000 assistance. So a lovely game there on Redshire for the third game in today's video. Now I'm going to head on into the fourth one, so I'll see you over there in just a second. So we are now on Thiepval Ridge in the Stormer 30. We have spawned in the south, and I'm going to make my way sort of towards the central ridges, just trying to get some vision for our team. And you definitely can play a kind of passive scouting role as well as an active scouting role, but be warned, if you're passive scouting and you get spotted, because of that poor engine power and relatively poor power to weight for a light tank, it can take you a while to get going again, and by the time you've got going you might have been taken out of the game. So you've definitely got to think about your escape routes. I'm going to park up in this bush, try and get some vision towards the north, and I am on a downslope, so I can kind of hide a lot of my tank here, as we're not as big as the M3A2 Bradley. Unfortunately not as small, as the sort of Jaguar 1 and the Wiesel 1A1 tow or the BMP3, but we can hide our tank just enough in these bushes, and we have these ridges here on Thiepval Ridge to be able to hide the majority of our tanks. So I'm always thinking about my exit routes should I get detected, and a great tactic if you are to be detected is just to head straight towards your teammate. If you've got a bulk of teammates around you and you are detected, try and drag them towards your team. You're more likely to get assistance that way and put the enemy tank sort of coming after you. But we can do sort of passive scouting here. You can stay hidden against most tanks. It's just tanks like the Wiesel, like the BMP3 that have superior concealment that are able to outspot you. But we're picking up 2,619 spotting damage to start off this replay here on Thiepval Ridge, and we're sort of going into enemy lines ridge by ridge, trying to be as sort of careful as possible. The more I knock down, the more likely it is someone's going to spot me, as I'm going to be knocking down trees and all of this rubble on these ridge lines. But if you're still in a bush, it can be very hard to even spot this tank, as it is relatively small. So unfortunately for us, a lot of the enemy have gone down the zero line, down the eastern side. So if we can kind of win the west, win the north, we can then go back and defend this encounter base, as it is an encounter capture circle. Quickly spot that Challenger 2 on our way, and then hopefully we can come round and get an ATGM right through the top of this object 292. Going to go right into sort of its top of the engine. If it missed by a slight amount, it should have just gone straight into the side of his turret, and now we can unload on this Stormer 30. He fires his ATGM, so I know he's got a 12-second interclip reload. We pop back out and he's now a one shot, and now we're going to make sure we aim our ATGM right into the side of that object 292, and he gets taken out. And we're going to re-stealth and then try and find our next target. And you've got to be kind of fast-paced in this vehicle. Keep thinking of your next ambush target. Think of those exit routes if you're going to be detected. And then always try and get as much damage out as possible. Preserving your hit points is obviously as good as you can do for the latter stages of the battle, so the more hit points you have towards the latter stages, the more you can be aggressive and the more dangerous you can become. Trying to get our second ATGM into the M3A2 Bradley there, I believe, but unfortunately he just ducks behind a ridge, so we're going to go for a reload. It doesn't feel like it takes too long in this vehicle, and now we're going to advance on this T72BU and the main battle tank below us. One thing to note about the Alvis Stormer 30 is that there is a little bit of a bug. So if you're using the ATGM launcher and you use the full extent of your gun depression and go into sniper mode, unfortunately it kind of feels as if you're looking through the gun. I believe you can still fire, however it's a bit of a visual bug and it can put you off. So yeah, when you're using your gun depression with the ATGM launcher full extent and you go into sniper mode, you will see kind of your gun in a transparent way, and it can be a little bit annoying. However, it's not game breaking, and I'm sure it will be fixed. But we put one ATGM there into the front of that 2A4. Unfortunately, we don't pen because we don't really aim that well. He caught us off guard. I had no idea he was there, and that's a bad on my part. But we're just going to go after him with our autocannon. I make a bit of a misplay there. Wasn't able to get up that ridgeline, and now we're in a little bit of trouble. But we've managed to load an ATGM again. Unfortunately, we only track him in place, which means although we're going to be getting the assistance, we are going to struggle in this scenario. But thankfully, the 2A4 didn't know who to shoot. We had a friendly Stormer 30 there, I believe, helping us, and that allowed us to take out that 2A4. We've now got tanks in front and behind us, and we've only got half a magazine with our autocannon, and we're on the reload for our 2 ATGMs. So I'm going to pop up here with the reverse speed, quickly switch to the ATGM. He gets taken out, and unfortunately, yeah, there was just too many tanks there coming and surrounding us. In a tank like the Wiesel, we might have had a chance with the concealment to run away, re-stealth, and outspot all of these opponents. However, in that situation, we just had to sort of take our medicine. We've dealt a pretty good amount of damage, and that's all she wrote for our involvement in that game, as our last remaining M1A1 gets taken out. So we lost by 5 tanks there, but we had a pretty nice impact in that game. We finish with a nice profit with or about a premium account, 4 kills, first class mastery badge, and we managed to pick up a nice 766 XP on a loss with 8.5k direct damage, 4 kills, 3.2k assistance, blocked 90, and yeah, a 5-minute 28-second battle showing you just the kind of damage you can put out with the Alvis Stormer 30. So I hope that you've enjoyed today's video or found it useful. Please leave a like and a comment down below. It really helps the channel out, and let me know what you think of this vehicle, whether it's bad for the game or whether you enjoy it and you've picked it up. And if you do pick it up, please bear in mind it's not going to be as OP as the Thiepval. If you're looking for something that's just as good as that vehicle, nothing quite scratches that itch. However, it's a pesk. It's better than the Jaguar 1 in my opinion, much better than the M3A2 Bradley, and if you like the playstyle, it's a high price, but it's a pretty fun tank. However, Black Friday is around the corner and I'm sure there'll be lots more sales. So that's it for today's video. Watch out for that visual bug when you're using the full extent of gun depression with the ATGM launcher. And apart from that, I hope you've enjoyed today's video. I'll catch you on the battlefield, and until next time, I'll see you on the battlefield, and bye for now.